A relative from London came to visit me for a couple of days, and we felt to explore the landscapes of Dartmoor. We visited the enchanted forest of Wistman's Wood, and here I will share a story that arose for me there, along with some photos and footage from the surrounding area of Dartmoor. We began our journey at the village of Postbridge and saw the ancient Clapper Bridge, which is believed to have been built in the 13th century to allow pack horses to cross the East Dart River. Clapper bridges are ancient forms found across the UK and usually consist of a granite or schist slab of rock over piles of stone supports. Looking at the map, it seemed like an ancient landscape full of hut circles, a stone circle and a barrow, and we continued our explorations of the moor and cairns around Fernworthy Reservoir. The following day we packed up a picnic and headed back onto the road, passing through Postbridge and Dartmeet again as we made our way to a car park near the Two Bridges Hotel, which was an old coaching inn built in 1794. This land, I felt, was a ritual landscape, full of Bronze Age settlements, stone rows, doors and the Druid stone or Buller stone, which could be found in Wistman's Wood. This was thought to be a sacred grove of the Druids, and Two Bridges held a famous potato market, and so many would have congregated there in the past. We walked in a circuit, heading up onto the moor and passing through the tors of Litterford and Longford. The energy up there was spectacular, and at Longford Tor we had a panoramic view over the moor, including views of the surrounding tors such as Bear Down Tors, High White Tor and Crow Tor. We had our lunch there after connecting with the stones and made our way down to the river. We continued through the boggy ground and made our way to Wistman's Wood. This was one of the most beautiful forests I have ever encountered. It is a native upland oak forest and full of gnarly common oak with lots of moss, lichens and stone boulders. It is thought that the name of the forest was derived from wisht, meaning eerie or pixie-led, haunted. The famous legend of the Wild Hunt appears throughout European folklore of supernatural hunters who are sometimes depicted as fairies, elves or the dead, and the leader is often associated with Odin or other legendary figures such as Gwyn ap Nudd. In British mythology, the hunt was often linked with fairies and leaders such as King Arthur, Gwyn ap Nudd, Gwydion and Nuada. In certain parts of Britain, it was believed that hellhounds of the hunt would chase sinners in Devon. These dogs were known as Yeth or Wishthounds. As I walked through this spectacular forest, I felt to be by myself and felt a story emerge. I later wrote down the story and added in more details to add some textures. I hope you enjoy the story that I present now. Titania was her name. There was a moon on her forehead and she wore a long purple cape over her dark green dress. Her hair was dark brown and decorated with a diadem of golden ivy leaves, and she swooped through the forest, lightly jumping from rock to rock. It was here that she studied the stars. She was a beautiful priestess of the Fae who dropped mead onto the stream water and uttered incantations of healing and blessing. She dangled her silver necklace over the stones and found the ways of the vortexes. Her heart spoke words of poems, and a wild grey hound ran at her side. In this ancient forest, a group of Druids would come year after year and camp there. It was said that this was the place they came to in order to learn about the songs and poems of the stars, and they would call upon Titania's grace to help them on their journeying. One Druid, named Ael, ventured further away from the group and meditated on a beautiful stone table, which the Druids called the Table of Titania, deep in the forest. In the middle of the night, as he meditated there, a beautiful maiden wearing a purple cloak appeared before him. She lightly touched his face and sat down on the stone. Caressing him gently, she whispered soft words that healed his heart. He felt as if his very movements and thoughts were in alignment with the cosmos when he was in her presence, and enjoyed this deep remembrance. The following morning, Aelle did not join the Druids as they shared their breakfast and prepared to leave the woods, and they presumed that he was still journeying and did not wish to disturb him, and so they left. Aelle was still lying on the stone table, holding the beautiful maiden, Titania. Yet as he lay there content on the stone, he did not notice as she began to change form. Suddenly a snake appeared and bit his ankle before shooting down before the mossy boulders. Aelle screamed out in pain, yet it was too late. There was no one to hear him, and he began changing himself. His body was fading away until he felt himself merging with the stone itself. His body had vanished. The months passed by, and there had still been no word of Aelle, and so his brother, Niall, decided to return to the woods and find him. He camped out in the forest at night and ate his dinners by a little fire. One night, as he slept there by a mossy boulder, he was awoken at 3 o'clock in the morning by the sound of 3 hoots of an owl. He followed the sounds, which led him down to a stream, where he sat for a while, hoping to hear the bird again. Scanning the scene, he was surprised to notice that in the reflection of the water he could see an owl sitting on a branch over the stream, yet it was not visible at all when he looked up. He stared at the water's reflection until he heard the owl, who began to speak. "My dear brother, you have found me at last. It is I, your brother, Aelle," said the owl. "You have been turned into an owl?" "Nay, into the land, my brother." "Then how can I bring you back?" "My dear brother, I cannot go back. I can only go forward." And with these words the owl flew off into the sky and was gone. Niall anxiously scanned the waters, seeking for a trace of the bird, but it had vanished. Yet he felt compelled to look at his own reflection and was horrified. His own eyes were changing. They were growing darker and bigger. They looked like owl eyes staring back at him. "I am hideous. I cannot go back to the village looking like this," he said to himself. So Niall remained in the forest and did not return. He made a small camp there in the woods, and he would eat the food offerings that were left out by the Druids for the nature spirits, and he gathered nettles and other edible weeds. It was cold and damp, and he learnt to make good fires. The years passed by, and Niall remained in his little forest hut as a hermit, and the Druids assumed that both brothers had been called into hermitage and did not disturb them. One year a beautiful maiden called Ava came to Wistman's wood to study to be a moon priestess, just as Titania of the Fae had done years before. She created a small camp for herself and had brought some supplies, and there she sat, wrapped in a cloak, to stare at the moon and the stars as the night passed by. During the day she was asleep, and at night she was there continuously, absorbing the energies of each visible star. She studied the Pleiades, Sirius, Polaris, Orion, Pollux and Castor of Gemini, Hamel and Sheraton of Aries, and Epsilon Pegasi of Pegasus. One night at 3 o'clock she heard the sound of an owl hooting 3 times, and decided to follow the sounds which led her to the stream. As she approached the water, she was startled to see a man sat on the opposite side of the bank. He looked up at her in shock, thinking she was one of the Fae, and was scared that she would be disgusted by the sight of his large eyes, but she would not look away and stared deeply at him. He began to soften and relax as he realized that her gaze was warm and loving, and he looked back at her. It felt wonderful to have contact. After a while, the maiden slowly crossed the stream, lightly jumping from rock to rock, and came to sit beside Niall. She spoke gently, like the water, and asked him questions, and he told her the story of his search for his brother Aelle, and he explained why he couldn't return to the village. Yet she continued to look at him lovingly, and his heart began to soften and relax, although he was still scared that she would secretly find him hideous. He felt to hold her hand, and they walked along the stream, up the moor for a while, moving in the moonlight and sharing stories. It is said that at a place on the moor they sat down, and as certain stars lined up, Niall and Ava sat down on a stone, and the stone transformed into a bed. Here they lay down, holding each other in divine love. Niall's heart was healed at last, and for many years the stone was known as Niall's bed.